Welcome, everyone. Good evening. This is Mónica Palacio, candidate for District Council at large, first Latina to run in the history of our city. I'm so excited to be with you tonight. It's really great to be with you on another Friday. We made it through another week. I know it's tough. I know you're holding it together. So congratulations. Give yourself some gratitude and just notice that you made it through the week. So I'm really thrilled to be coming to you live through Facebook with a wonderful, amazing woman who probably needs no introduction, but she is one of the strongest community leaders I know, a fierce transgender woman, activist, and leader, Miss Ruby Corado. So we're going to welcome Ruby. She's going to say a few words, and then we'll jump in.
Hi, everyone. And hi, Monica. I'm so excited because this is not the first time we are doing something together. I admire you for so many years, the commitment and the dedication that you have for the communities. And I will tell you one thing that makes you unique and sets you apart from anybody. You always answer my phone. A lot of people know what I do. I support people who are in very dangerous situations, who are in survival mode. And every time that I called you, you always responded. So I want people to know that because as you are engaging in a new venture, people need to know how accessible is Monica. And if Monica can be accessible for Rupi Corado, who will always be bringing good news, that says a lot about who you are.
Thank you, Ruby. You're so kind, so generous. I want to say that Ruby and I go way back when I became director, before I became the director of the Office of Human Rights in 2013. I got to know you, Ruby. I came to visit Casa Ruby when you were on Georgia Avenue, remember? Mm-hmm. And I think we were doing the Safe Bathrooms campaign when there was all that fuss about transgender people using a damn public restroom, So, and we know that in the district, people have the right to use the bathroom of their choice. Yes. And businesses need to make sure when they have a single stall bathroom, it must be labeled gender neutral. This keeps the people that want to use the bathroom safe. So this is just one of the projects that we did together. And you were always there, Ruby. You were always willing to jump in, collaborate, be a partner, give us guidance and advice. Because cisgender allies, we don't know that much, right? We're learning. To be an ally is to always be learning. So I always appreciated your patience and saying, look, this is the way things are, and you need to understand what's really happening in the lives of transgender women, particularly transgender women of color and transgender people of color. So I just want to appreciate you also for your steadfast leadership. I know that you have grown your organization tremendously. Tell us a little bit about Casa Ruby.
Yes. Well, Casa Ruby is a community dream, right? And it is not just Ruby's dream. It really is. It's the response to violence, to HIV, to incarceration, to unjust immigration laws. It really is an answer to poverty. And it is a place where we celebrate life. It's a place where we honor everyone's life, where everybody has value, where everybody brings something to the table. And together, I often say to people, if you think that your dreams become great when they become a reality, they become bigger when other people dream with you. And actually, we go way before, because remember when we were doing that town hall in the convention center?
Oh, yes.
Table. And she looks at me, and then I start talking about trans issues. And then I look at her, and she's like, oh my God, I want to be part of these, and it happened to be in the Latino table, and you were doing the facilitation and you were doing all of this. And I always bring out reality. And I was like, well, the transgender community, the gay community, and you were like, yes. And together we were able to get the whole table that was a non-LGBT table
To listen.
Yes, to listen and to respect. And that is why I think your contributions to the community are not just about what everybody else can bring to the table, but really how do you get to navigate respect for all the communities that today don't have respect.
That's right, Ruby. That's right. And respect is fundamental. I mean, across race, age, gender, sexual orientation, physical appearance, economic status, everyone universally wants respect and deserves respect, right? Deserves to be treated as a human being worthy of dignity, value, and who should be cared for and loved. And respect is kind of like the doorway into having quality of life. And you are always a gatekeeper at that door. You're always saying, come in, honey. If you need shoes, you need a hot meal, you need a place to sleep, I'll take you in. So tell us about the different locations you have now.
Yes, today, particularly, the work is very important because we are facing one of the worst pandemics in history. And basically, a pandemic that has actually put on the front lines the inequalities in Washington, D.C., the disparities, that actually put people at higher risk to die from COVID-19. One of the things as a first response organization, as an organization that is dedicated to saving the lives of vulnerable people, of homeless people, poor people, we made the decision not to close the doors, right? And a lot of people have been scared because genuinely they did not know. I am a survivor of HIV and AIDS, and all I can remember it was, wow, this is HIV all over again. And I'm not gonna lie, I spent 3 days glued to the TV trying to understand what is this. And one of the things that I learned is that COVID can be prevented, right? And I think that once we are able to understand how can we prevent this infection, then you can become engaged in how you will do it. And pretty much since March the 10th that the mayor announced, we have not had one case of COVID at Casa Ruby. We have seen thousands of people. We have helped thousands of people, provided lots of services, but we also have practiced all the important guidelines that are necessary to keep this infection under control. And I will have to say it is really sad because there's a lot of services that were interrupted. Many places really did not have the ability to keep the doors open. So places like Casa Ruby immediately began seeing a 40% increase in the amount of clients that came in. The resources have been really small. We lost a lot of support that we used to get from the restaurants, from the hotels. When they will do catering events, when they will have events and food was left over, they will bring it to us. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of those resources. But I will tell you one thing, just like I did not lose faith during the AIDS epidemic, I have faith that with good leadership, particularly at the city council, the most vulnerable, and I really mean for your readers, for the people that are listening, Monica has been there for the most vulnerable people, right? And I think it's very important that if you believe in equal justice, in social justice, that you elect people that are like-minded, because today there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the city council. I have seen a lot of horrible things happening during the budget season where vulnerable people, displaced workers, were not a priority. And I think as a city we can do better because everybody's life matter in this town. And we need to bring back leadership that is really socially conscious with people that have a report doing the work.
Thank you, Ruby. And it really is about a long-term investment in our people, in our residents, in our city, and not just crunching numbers and not just saying, well, we can spend more money on poor people, but how do we stop people from becoming poor, right? How do we help them get on their feet and stay on their feet and not just provide emergency services? I mean, emergency services are needed, don't get me wrong. But we have to think about helping people rebuild their lives and take charge of their lives and have a life with dignity. And a lot of people are running around like, well, we have to protect the budget. We have to fight for the budget. We have to talk about the budget. The budget is not enough. Money is not enough. You can have all the money in the world, but you have to have the right values. And You and I have talked about these values many times, respect, inclusion, dignity. You get to love who you love, and you get to be welcomed as a member of our city and our communities, no matter how you present, right? No matter what your history is, no matter what country you come from. I mean, I come originally from Colombia, and I'm an immigrant, but people look at me and they're like, oh, pero esa cara de gringa, right? And they immediately dismiss and trivialize my story as a female, as a Latina immigrant, and I have to kind of fight back to tell my story. But that happens to you and to all of us too.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's very frustrating. And women are not taken seriously as elected leaders in this city. I mean, I see the way Mayor Bowser gets attacked. She's not perfect, but when did a man ever have to be perfect to be a leader? I
Yes.
mean, seriously.
The attacks that she receives for doing her job, no one says thank you for standing up for the communities, for standing up to a different administration. No one says thank you, for working 400 days a year
Yeah.
and being called, this lady does so much, and no one gets to say thank you, because when they see one thing that they don't agree with, all of a sudden all the great things that she has done go out of the door. I don't think so.
Well, and I think, Ruby, and I'm sure you experience this too, as a leader, and when you're a woman, people always want you to have a smile on your face and to say yes, you know? And when if you don't say yes, you don't agree, or if you look upset or you express how you feel, then you get labeled, right, as angry, irrational, and somebody who isn't listening or doesn't care. But if a man sneezes, then it's front page. It makes front page news on the Washington Post. At least that's the way I feel. I keep saying that because when we look at the DC Council right now, until recently there were only 4 women out of 13 members. I'm losing you, Ruby. I hope you can come back. So when we look at the city council, until recently there were 4 women. Now there are 5, and I think we might have lost Ruby temporarily. So my team will hopefully help her get back on. But it's very challenging to want to run for office in a city where where women are discouraged and women are sometimes kind of left off the radar. They're not considered. Recently, I had to fight just to get an interview with a local organization that was endorsing candidates. They didn't even consider me based on certain criteria I know nothing about. It was some mysterious process. But we have to fight to be taken seriously. And what I've noticed that Ruby is so wonderful at doing is making sure that the voices of transgender women and transgender men, especially those who identify as of color, are taken seriously in the city and make sure that their lives have value. There you are. You're back.
I apologize. It was the cook at Casa Ruby calling me, telling me that we don't have eggs for tomorrow's breakfast. And
Oh
I
my goodness. Well, that's important.
yeah. It's that when you work on delivering services to people, you have to make sure that everything that they need is available to them. So I apologize for.
No worries. It was like magic. You disappeared and you came back like a
I,
magician.
it's the way, but yes, what I want to say about what you just said is very often women in Washington D.C. and pretty much across this country, have to work 5 times harder just to be respected, to have the work that we do sometimes to be validated in society. And I think those are unfortunate situations that really make it a lot harder for women that have great ideas, for women that have great solutions to social problems, to many things, to actually have the opportunity to enrich the work and actually to create change, right? And I as a person who happens to be transgender, I have a different perspective, and I think men bring great contributions, but they don't always make the right choices. So sorry, guys. Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
no, I just think that there's some always a different perspective, and I think women should not have to fight harder so we can get our work validated.
That's right. And I don't mean to be, I'll give you an example. I don't mean to be dismissive of any of the candidates running against me for their age. But I've been working longer than some of them have been alive, Ruby.
Yes.
And in 1992, I started working with incarcerated women and incarcerated men who were parents to help them have access to their children. 1992, okay? And now the topic of returning citizens is very interesting and sexy, but I started doing that when I was 25 years old because I deeply cared about the guys and the women that were locked up. And
Yeah.
and the research shows that when someone is in prison, as long as they can maintain a connection to their family and particularly if they're parents, it gives them resiliency and it reduces the risk of them ending up in prison again. I mean, these are facts. This is science. And yet we still, right now we have DC residents that are shipped all over the country
Yes.
when they are sentenced and have to do, time in prison because of the Bureau of Prisons, because we're not a state. And, that's a very complex issue, but we need our statehood as well in order to fight that problem. But it's those connections to each other. And Ruby, you do such an amazing job of building community. So before I ask you the next question, thinking about the communities that you serve and that you lead, what do you want from the council? What do you want from the leadership of the city?
The number one thing and the call that I want to make for everyone, including the council and government, keep your promises, right? When you come out here in the community and you tell us that you are going to, fight for the things that are important to us, once you get in that office, don't forget, I have been around for quite a few years and I worked in doing policy and advocacy during the administration what Anthony Williams was part of.
Mhm.
I mean, I was kind of young for before, but I've been around, politics for almost 20 years, involved in some kind of advocacy. And I remember 20 years ago, Tyra Hunter, a Black trans woman, died in the hands of fire and EMS. A government employee stopped treating her, and as a result of that negligence, she lost her life. Her mother sued the city and won a few $1 million. But the one thing that I kept in my mind is that the judge who awarded her the money said, we must do better as a city. 20 years have passed, and Black and brown trans women continue to live in poverty, continue to lose their lives with very few solutions. Casa Ruby has been able to do a lot of work, but we cannot do it all. We cannot do it all with the amount of limited resources. And very often, the resources that we get are already dedicated for things that we cannot do anything else with that money, right? So I really want the politicians, and this goes to everyone that is being now considered for reelection and all the new people. Whatever promise you make to the community, please keep it. My other promise is also, let's sit down together. One of the beauty about politics should be that the community should be involved. That the community comes together and says, you know what, let's look at this option and make sure that then when the community gives you feedback, don't just put that in a file on a computer. Make sure that the recommendations actually get to produce what the community wants to see. Because unfortunately, if the issues continue to be there, people are not going to be reelected. So I'm
That's
very excited that you are running for office. I work with you. I know, the commitment that you have. I know how hard you work. I have seen a lot of government employees, and I hate to do this, but because this is not a bashing on government employees. I have people that I never see them in the office.
Mhm.
They are directors of the administration that I don't get to see them, and like how in the world can you really work towards the bettering the lives of the people in this city when you don't even show up for work, and I know one of the things why I agree. I don't always do endorsement, and I want people to know that this is not going to be an open endorsement because I run a nonprofit. But I will tell you one thing: I support people, and one thing that I am going to do, I am going to support Monica, because Monica, through the years that I have worked, has proven not only that she's accessible. Some of you don't even know what it's like to have Monica pick up the phone when you are being discriminated at the DMV. You guys don't even know what it's like to call Monica and say, Monica, they're kicking me out of here because I'm asking, why do I need this form to get a name change? People don't have that kind of understanding. When I call you about my client who died inside DC jail, the trans woman that was almost raped in a restaurant, and you said, Ruby, we're going to do this together. That is the kind of elected official that I want to see, that when I call them for something that is important, I don't get a voicemail. But when they were in the campaign, baby, they answered all of my texts.
Yeah.
So the reality, one thing I bring to the table is reality talk. Reality talk. I want somebody that is going to represent me. I want somebody that understands me. You don't always have to agree with everything that I have to say or where I come from, but I want someone that is honest about what they said they are going to do. There are many people that are running right now that have not been honest to the LGBTQ community, that have not been honest to the immigrant community, that certainly have not been honest with the homeless community, and you are not one of them. So I encourage everyone to make sure that we elect people that are good for their word. Sometimes people don't have to be rich or millionaires, but they have to be truthful. And when you live and breathe the truth, it will always follow you. And that is what I know about you. A woman that has always said what she was going to do. There were times you said to me, Ruby, I don't think I can hire another person because I don't have it in the budget. But guess what? You told me that it will happen one day, right? And that's the kind of person that we need.
And we're going to do it, Ruby. We're still going to work on that, and we're going to do that. And I appreciate your words. I know that it comes from a place of deep trust and belief in me, and I deeply appreciate that. Your work has always been, fearless, and you're all about helping the folks that need us the most. So I appreciate your leadership. And, as we start to wind down, I'm going to do more of my campaign pitch, which is, folks, everyone says to me, well, there are a lot of people running. Well, yes, there are a lot of people running, but only 4 or 5 of us identify as women. And only one of those women has been working in DC since 1992 on your behalf, and that's me. And I'm the first Latina to declare her candidacy for the DC Council. And I don't say that like the city owes this to to somebody, but immigrants have been part of the fabric of this city, not for 20 years, not for 30 years, but for 60 or 70, 80 years now, and we have never had an elected representative. It's not fair. It's not okay anymore. And we need to have a voice at the table, because if you don't have a voice at the table, then your issues and your challenges always come last. They're always at the end of the list. We would say, oh, we forgot to include, money for excluded workers, undocumented workers. Oh, we need to come up with a solution for driver's licenses for undocumented workers. It's always an afterthought. It's always, oh, that's right, we did it in English, and now we have to think about doing it in other languages. We need to put immigrants who are putting their lives on the line as essential workers right now, cooking meals, working construction, working in grocery stores, taking care of children, they're nurses, they're healthcare providers. We need to put immigrants first for once. And by first, I mean, we need to recognize their contributions to the city, our contributions, and build solidarity, okay? Because this isn't about competing for resources. We need to make sure there are resources for all people in the city, but with prioritizing Black and brown people who are low income or who are at risk of, of being homeless and being evicted or getting sick. We have to put them first, because we are all connected through this crisis, right? Nobody's going to walk away without having to make an adjustment or adapt in order to take care of all of us. And we all have to pitch in. So I say that to say that, I've been inside the government. I worked inside the government for 8 years. I was the director of the Office of Human Rights. And the Office of Human Rights is a little bit like an emergency room If you don't need it, you don't go there, right? But when you need it, we were there for people facing discrimination on the job, discrimination getting a place to live, discrimination getting public services. We were always there. And I made sure my agency did the very best it could to serve. And I think that was recognized because my agency doubled in size. And I'm the only candidate who's been at the table at budget discussions 6 years in a row, defending my agency and understanding how the entire district budget process was working. Everyone else has been on the outside, and they look in and they criticize and they complain, but they haven't been on the inside doing the work, and I have. So there's so many reasons I want to win your vote, but mostly because I deeply care about our city and everyone who lives here. Everyone must be valued and counted and respected. And that's why, Ruby, it's so important for us to have this conversation, not just once, but we're going to keep talking, and we're going to see what happens as election time gets closer. Because right now it's still August. People are on vacation, whatever. And school is starting for some families. But things are going to get heated up because it's going to be a big race. So what do you think it's going to look like in the coming months?
I think people are really thinking about election time right now because we are looking at the national, conventions taking place. And I really think, I always said, I just did a town hall for the Biden, for the convention, for the Democratic convention, where, they have the different caucuses. And I did a town hall. And one of the things that I talked about is so important to get involved in local politics. And I want to just be honest, people, it is important that we bring change. Trust me, right now at the city council, we have a whole bunch of people that are so privileged. Their privilege is so big that anytime that there's a discussion about homeless people, about displaced workers, they don't even understand what it is like, because they get to go home to a place where they are comfortable. Their paycheck was not interrupted. They were able to continue making the deals that they were doing. They continued to live a life of privilege. But the people who are in real need, the people who lost their life in the shelters due to COVID, the youth that are still on the street, the immigrants that are still without very little future to look forward, and they pretend that these people don't exist. So let me tell you, how do you think they're going to care about you when
right.
you need? One of the things that life has taught me, that people are not always here all the time. Life can be very funny sometimes, and you never know when you are going to need the support from someone. And in the meantime, people have to really be honest with what they say. There's a lot going on. I am not a politician. I am not here to talk about who didn't do their job. But let me tell you guys, Monica was right. How many women of color, how many, one of the girls in Southeast that I work with, she said, Ruby, I don't feel represented in the city council. And guess what? I don't feel either. So it is time that we bring people, we bring new leadership. All of the people that sold votes, there's been a lot of things going on in this election. The people that sold votes, so their favorite candidate will win in return of favors. Let's get out of that mentality. That was the 70s. That was the 80s. Let's make the investments in the community. Let's not just see homeless people and poor people as a liability. Let's see them as an opportunity, and let's give them the tools so they also can become entrepreneurs, so they can also become politicians. And we're going to start with you, Monica.
Thank you, Ruby. You are just fabulous. I appreciate that so much. We do go way back, so it means a lot to me to have your support. And so as we wrap up, I want to say to everyone, we always have to take a good look at ourselves. Where is my discomfort? Where have I had experiences that maybe misinform me about certain groups and certain communities, whether it's about men and women, young and old, black and white, Latinos, immigrants, new residents, longtime residents. We all have a lot of work to do. So if you find yourself at home with some free time, you get to think about that. Where is my own discomfort and where are the limits of my acceptance as a DC resident? So I just want to say thank you, Ruby, and remember everybody that living life in COVID is stressful. So you must take care of yourself. And I want to ask three things of you. In addition to taking good care of yourself, I want you to check out my website, which is monicafordc.com. I talk about many of the issues that are important to me and my goals and priorities. You can read about my experience and the work I've done in DC, and you can also donate. I'm part of the Fair Elections program, which means that DC residents, when you donate even just $10, it automatically gets multiplied by 5, and the campaign gets $60. The maximum donation is $100. So if you donate $100, it automatically becomes $600. What a great investment in democracy and in candidates like me. If it wasn't for the Fair Elections program, I would have never run for DC Council. So we need to invest in our democracy. Please donate if you can, or if you know somebody who's in need and needs a mask or needs a meal, please contact us, and my campaign will help put them in touch with the right resources and the right support. And last but not least, we're always looking for volunteers. So if you want to do some phone banking, deliver some yard signs, come help us deliver masks. Today we were in Deanwood delivering some grocery cards to families that were low on food. Please let us know if you'd like to volunteer. We're always looking for help. So with that, Ruby, you're the best. I'm so glad we could talk today. Have a wonderful weekend. You want to say goodbye?
Take care, and to the people listening, make sure you share this video. Call your friends, call your booty call anyone you want, and make sure you have someone listening to the message, baby. Because when we don't educate ourselves about who is running for politics, we end up with people who make promises that they never keep.
That's right, Ruby. Those are great words of advice. So thank you, everyone. Have a great Friday night, a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.